Hello, I'm Shelly Bell. Welcome to BGV Talks, where we are interviewing prominent people about the business of being them. Today, we're going to be talking to Audrey Leibovich, who is the CEO of CO Beauty, who is a large beauty brand up in New York. And we're excited to talk to her. They're a huge supporter of BGV, on top of the fact that their CEO, their founder, is a woman. The CEO is a woman. They really care about women in business. So welcome, Audrey. How are you?
I'm good, Shelly. I'm so excited to meet you and to be part of your world. I'm excited to talk to you and your viewers.
Awesome. So, tell us a little bit about you and who you are, how you got here, and what do you love?
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of career, how I got here, it's been a long road and definitely a windy road. I actually started off my career in investment banking right out of college, and kind of did the whole Wall Street thing for about 3 years, and it was a great experience, but I didn't have the passion for finance, and you really need to have that kind of passion to work those kind of crazy hours. But I have to say, nothing will be as bad as banking in terms of the hours and the stress and some of the personalities. But after business school, I decided to pivot and go into consumer products just because that's what I really love. So I went to Donna Karan as a planner doing sales and inventory forecasting. And it was just a dream to work in fashion because I've always been really interested in it. After Donna Karan, I went to a couple of different places, but ultimately ended up in digital marketing, first at Shopop, which is an online women's clothing store. The interesting thing about Shopop was that even though it was 11 years old and at that point owned by Amazon, it still very much operated as a startup, a very startup mentality, kind of roll up your sleeves, do everything yourself. Great learning experience, got to work on a lot of really different and interesting projects. Then went to a much larger company, Hudson's Bay. They own Saks, Lord & Taylor, off Fifth, and worked on digital marketing for them. And actually got laid off. And so had a few months off and needed to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was trying to figure out where would I be happiest in terms of size of company, type of leadership. And I realized I wanted to be somewhere smaller. And although I love digital marketing, I wanted to take on a more leadership role, kind of more general management. Did a ton of interviews. It was definitely a hard time because you just never know what's going to work out. And going on job interviews is like dating. You think it works, but it doesn't, and you get ghosted and things like that. But I met Michael Loeb through a recruiter. He's my investor, and then met Gigi Howard, the founder. And I have to say it was kind of love at first sight for all of us. And then they quickly hired me. And now I've been with CO Beauty for almost 3 years. It's hard to believe. And I feel like everything I've done in my career has led up to this point. It's really kind of a dream job. And I couldn't be happier, despite staying up at night worrying about so many things. It's really a wonderful experience. And then kind of from a more personal perspective, my family is actually from Russia. And so we speak Russian at home, but have been here for most of my life. I grew up in New Jersey and have been living in the city for, I hate to say it, 20 years at this point. And love taking advantage of the city, running in the park, spending time with friends. I'm sad that concerts and restaurants are kind of off limits right now, but hoping, one day we get back to those kind of fun activities. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. So you switched careers.
Mm-hmm.
First, you went from this very investment banking world into this world of fashion.
Yeah.
What was that like? So were you always, did you have a creative kind of nature about you, like growing up? Or was going into the creative world like a complete culture shift for you? What was that like?
So growing up, my mom and I both loved reading all the fashion magazines. At home, we had stacks of Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, years and years worth of magazines, and we'd watch fashion shows together on TV. So I've always loved fashion, and I've always loved beauty, also because of my mom. She is kind of, she would transform herself before going out for the evening, with all the makeup. And it was just amazing to kind of watch that transformation before she had an evening out. So I've always had a passion for both of those industries. But when I was in college, my parents were very strict and were very much about, you need to make a practical decision about your career. So they kind of steered me towards finance. So, it's always kind of, my life is about the push and pull of what I want to do versus, sometimes family pressure, as I'm sure some people could relate. But banking seemed like a good idea at the time because it's a formal program. They came to interview on campus. I had friends who were doing banking. So it was just kind of part of the machine of college in a way. And I thought it would give me a really good base about understanding numbers, data, spreadsheets. And I have to say that's all served me really well, even as I left banking. But in business school, I graduated in '02, and that was a really tough economy. And the jobs that I thought I would go to, finance or maybe consulting, they were less available because the economy was really tough. So it really forced me to think about, what do I want to do with my career? Do I want to pursue something that I am passionate about? So I thought about fashion, beauty, magazines, and I did a ton of networking, did a lot of job searches, job fairs, et cetera, and found my way to Donna Karan. And it was tough because I had a lot of friends who did go back to finance, and it was weird not to be part of that world anymore. I also made less money than I did before business school, so I'm like, wow, what am I doing? This is crazy. I have all these student loans, but I really enjoyed it. And I got to meet Donna Karan herself, and I went to attend market appointments with the buyers and see the clothes before they hit the stores. And it was all, kind of a dream world, and something that I was really excited about. And, from there I spent some time at Barnes & Noble, Avon, before getting to Shopbop. So, have really had kind of different parts of kind of fashion, beauty. And it was good to experience kind of different businesses and doing different functions at those businesses, because everything just kind of helps build your overall kind of resume and set of skills. And I haven't looked back. There's never been a time when I say to myself, I wish I'd gone back to finance, even times when, the paycheck wasn't that big, because eventually you get to where you need to be through hard work and experience. So yeah, it's funny. I mean, I still remember very clearly some of those investment banking moments, and they certainly taught me a lot. And I'm grateful for that foundation. In a way, it's kind of like a boot camp for life.
Yeah. Well, do you have any stories? We would love some funny story. I mean, any of these, I think funny stories about you learning a thing. We love those. If you have any of those, totally share.
Yeah, I mean, wow. For investment banking, I think it's a different environment now. I think I think people care much more about work-life balance, and I think there's much more focus on that. But when I did banking in '97, it wasn't like the crazy rah-rah times of banking, but there was still a lot of kind of screaming and yelling, flirting. It was definitely a different time, and I just remember being yelled at a bunch of times, or I remember a banker coming over to my neighbor's, cubicle and shaking it because she had made a mistake in the model. And you're just like, and then, both of us crying in the bathroom because we're like, we can't take it anymore. So, all those crazy things that you hear about investment banking. But I have to say, I would never yell at anybody, but I also, from being yelled at a few times, I never made those mistakes again, and that kind of taught you to have a thick skin and not take things so personally, and to check your work. So it is important to give your manager, quality work. No crazy story at the moment. Maybe at the end I'll think of something, but.
well, I'm interested in so you going through those experiences, what did that teach you about the kind of leader that you wanted to be? Yeah. What did that mean for how you work with different kinds of people?
Definitely. I've been managing people for a while now. And I remember my first job managing people was actually when I was at Barnes & Noble. I had a team of 6 analysts. And you really, even though in business schools, you spend time learning about organizational behavior and management, you don't really understand until you've been through situations with people, whether it's needing to motivate them or to give negative feedback or to give positive feedback. But I mean, for my management style, I manage the way I want to be managed. I'm very open door policy. I'm very much giving feedback in the moment so that they can correct whatever skill they need to improve upon. And I develop a lot of trust in my people, and I'm very open. I like to teach, because I've, just thinking about all the different bosses I've had, and, at this point, there's been so many. I've had amazing bosses, and I've had bosses that weren't that great. And I think I've learned something from each one of them. I would say my boss at Barnes and Noble gave me a lot of freedom and let me run a lot of big processes. And from there, I learned, wow, you really have to project manage and build in time for things to go wrong, which I didn't at that time. So that was a big learning point. Then I had another boss who was just very frazzled all the time because the job she had me was a little bit too much for her, which sent us spinning in different directions. And so now I try to be very clear with my team on what the goals are and expectations are. And if I change my opinion midway through, I feel bad because I don't want to send them spinning. So I try to, I try to lead by example, and I try to make sure people feel good about themselves and the contribution they're making. I had a boss at Avon who was very good about giving me a lot of credit for the work that I was doing and letting me shine in meetings and kind of letting me fly and, get more experience. And that was, such a wonderful feeling that I try to make sure I do that for my team. If I just had a call with my boss, one of my junior people, and an outside vendor, and kind of I let her do a lot of the talking because she knows some of the stuff better than I do. And I want her to be able to look good in front of my boss because it's just, it's good experience for her. And I think when your team does well, you look good no matter what.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
So for some of the entrepreneurs out there that are looking to get their items onto a shelf or work in the fashion design industry from that standpoint, what kind of advice would you give them? Like, what are some of the things, like mistakes you've seen people make a lot in the fashion industry that you're like, if they knew this one thing or this thing, they would stop doing this or they would not miss so many opportunities? Are there any things that you could think of that are that way?
Yeah, I think, maybe in the beauty space, I think you want to solve for a problem and find a solution that doesn't already exist. So for my company, CO Beauty, Gigi, our founder, had a lot of wrinkles in her chest area, and there was nothing out there that could solve for those wrinkles because you can't get injectables in your chest, and a lot of the creams just don't work. So she came up with this idea of these silicone patches that help smooth the skin. So she was able to come up with something that, that wasn't already out there. So it's really important to bring forward a product where you don't have a lot of competitors right away. So I think, that's important. And to really do your research on your ingredients and have some sort of testing, whether it's just consumer testing, if you can't afford clinical testing, but to be able to have some results to speak of. And then to not be afraid to spend on marketing, because you do need to start getting your brand out there, but you have to be smart about it because marketing is very expensive. So maybe you're not spending a ton on Facebook marketing, but you're really working kind of your friends, referrals, maybe kind of a small group of influencers. So you can't skimp on marketing, but you also have to always watch, as my boss says, your unit economics, because people do want to see a path to profitability sooner rather than later. I think the market has really changed over the last year. You would hear about all these companies exploding with sales, and then kind of when you dig under the hood, it turns out they were completely losing money, month over month. And now investors want to see growth and some sort of profitability. So you could never really lose sight of that, and kind of just thinking about how much money you're going to make off of each unit.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about launching your own thing?
No, not yet. I really, so I joined CO. So CO was launched in July of 2016, and I joined in October 2017. So the product was already developed. The website was already built. And so my job was to kind of take everything to the next level. So right now I'm really enjoying kind of that journey of helping scale a company. At this point, I don't really have like the idea, just yet, but I like kind of, this is like a really great stage for me where I can take kind of a base and make improvements to it.
Awesome. Yeah, because it seems like you're the person to like call in. It's like, hey, you know what? Call in Audrey because we need to.
That's so fun.
Yeah, we need to get things going. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's now having been, this is my first my first kind of entrepreneur gig, my first startup. And, you know, you have a sense of what it's like to be at a startup. You have a sense, okay, you're going to work hard, roll up your sleeves, everyone does everything, but you don't really know what it feels like until you're doing it. And it's both remarkable to be able to make a change to the website or to a marketing strategy and see the results. And that's so awesome. But at the same time, you really have to do everything yourself. And there's not a minute that I'm not thinking about my company. I'm thinking about it first thing when I wake up as I look at sales. Before I go, you know, as I'm falling asleep, I'm like, oh, we have to think about this and that, and how are we going to stage those, you know, different ideas to make it reality. And oh, I have to talk to my investor, you know. And even when you're a CEO, like there's still someone above you that you have to answer to. So there's, it's really all encompassing. I remember last year I took a vacation. I went to Japan with one of my girlfriends, and even as I'm walking, you know, these beautiful temples, I'm like, how's my company doing? What are sales? How's my team doing without me? Yeah. So
I love that you said that, because yes, that is the startup world for sure. How do you maintain some of that balance? So, you know, do you have apps that you keep on hand? Do you, you know, lean into fitness things or more woo-woo things?
Yeah.
Or, you know, what? How do you get that balance?
No woo-woo just yet, but I love to exercise. I try to, you know, I'm near Central Park, so I can run in the park. Even now during quarantine, when the gym was open, I used to take classes. So for me, being able to exercise a couple times a week is so important. And maybe that's the only time where like my phone is away and I can just focus kind of on the moment. And then really important to stay in touch with friends and spend time socializing with friends and family, you know, grabbing a drink together, trying out a new restaurant, going for a walk together. That kind of helps kind of keep me grounded. And then, you know, just having, you know, people to talk to both about, you know, business and personal life. You know, it's important to have kind of like a shoulder to lean on in good times and in bad.
Yeah. Do your friends like understand entrepreneurship? Because I know like for a lot of times, you know, like friends don't always understand what it means to stay up all night and think about a company, or, you know, even for me, like trying to date has been challenging, because it's like finding the person that understands that, like, as soon as I get up in the morning, I'm going to have a little routine, but like I need to get to it. Right.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, or like Wednesdays are my long day and I'm talking to people all day. Back to back to back. You know, people who just, and because some people are like, oh, you could just not do it. You could just tap out. You can just stop here.
Yeah.
You can just, and you're like, no.
Yeah.
So how does that work like in your life?
Yeah, definitely a great question. I mean, most of my friends are in pretty cool jobs at this point in our careers. You know, we're pretty far out from college at this point, and people have, you know, whether they're in entrepreneurs or kind of in more corporate America, everyone seems like pretty busy work-wise and is pretty engaged work-wise. And so and maybe they have slightly different challenges, but everybody has, you know, different challenges in terms of trying to keep their teams motivated or meet certain sales goals. And they also like love hearing about my job because they're just so curious about startup life. You know, I think from a dating perspective, it's more kind of the intimidation factor of saying that, hey, yeah, I am a CEO, you know, and if some guys, you know, don't care and some guys are a little bit intimidated by that, you know, and I think as a woman, that is, I think, something that, you know, a lot of us have to deal with, whether it's because we went to really good schools or have really cool jobs. You know, that's, I think, a reality of being a woman these days.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's awesome. So basically, I think what you just said to me about about being a CEO and having the friends is like, make sure your friends are all leveled up too. That's level up. Make sure your whole network is leveled up, so everybody understands that everybody's dealing with a group of people, or teams, and No, I love that 100%. What are some of the things that are kind of like baked into your personality that you instill as a culture at CO Beauty? Like, what are you, because I think there's one thing that, there's one part of like hiring people. There's another thing to create a company culture. What do you feel like the company culture is, and the company culture that you're growing at CO Beauty?
So we're a really small team, and even though we're not all sitting in the same space anymore, we're still in touch, kind of all day long. Some of my folks like to Slack, some like to FaceTime, and I try to meet people kind of what's more comfortable for them. So I don't mind the fact that there's a bunch of different communication styles going on, because I want people to be communicative and therefore productive. So I let them kind of guide that. I think I have a lot of empathy, and I try to really understand where everybody is coming from, and I really encourage everybody to work together. And so, we have our team huddle every Monday where we kind of go through business updates, and I ask everybody to contribute and tell people what they're working on, whether it's something small or something bigger, just so that everybody knows what's going on. I want everybody to feel included, and I want everyone to feel like they're part of something bigger. And I think that's been good, because people are so excited when our sales are good, or worried if our sales aren't good. I think everyone feels like we're in this together. And that's important, because then I think people are just more committed. And working at a startup as well as an e-commerce company, especially, we're open all the time. It requires people to be more available. It's not a 9-to-5 culture. And I appreciate the fact that people on my team, I know some people are kind of early risers, so we have our conversations, while we're still having coffee in the morning. Some, are a little bit later. So if I text somebody at 9:30 p.m., they'll respond, because they're committed to the company, and I think to me as their leader. So, and that, I think, has just taken time to build that trust.
100%. I always say at Black Girl Ventures, we're never not talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as easy as like we just keep walking in and out of the room talking to each other.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it feels like over technology. Like we're all in a group chat.
Yeah.
Like I may at 4 a.m. like, oh my God, y'all, we need to do a thing,
Yeah.
And as soon as everybody's up, they're responding. So I think that's so interesting about that about startup life.
Yeah.
What do you feel like any of the work that you're doing right now, or the work you want to do, is like mission driven, and like what would that mission for you be?
Yeah, so we haven't done a ton of that, to be quite honest. I think as we're turning 4 years old in July, so that's exciting. And I feel like, we're finally in a place where we can start thinking about that. And I think, that's important, because we do want to give back, because we have been lucky. And I think it's important to support something kind of bigger than yourself. And so we are going to start having those conversations to make a decision about kind of who and where we want to support. And so I'm thinking will be something about women, entrepreneurs, something that makes sense with who we are as a company. And so I'm glad that we're finally at the point where we can have those conversations and make a commitment. And yeah, I mean, we've been lucky. We have a great investor who's been incredibly supportive, gives great advice, and has been, funding us. And not everyone, I think, has such a great funding situation. And so, we would love to give back and, help. I think, I'm thinking something more kind of female entrepreneurship, but, TBD, but it's conversations we're starting to have.
And what, so as a CEO and working with the founder, how has that been like looped into working with an investor? Because different people have that structure different. Like sometimes people are really protective over there, and they're like, the founder is the only one that talks to the investor. And like, but it sounds like you have a really great team dynamic where like the leadership is the investor understanding who you are as a CEO and how you run things and how you're producing, on top of the founder actually working with that. So question, when you came on, was Gigi running CO Beauty herself, or?
No, we had someone else who was kind of at the head leadership role. And Gigi, we have different skills, and we just complement each other so well. Gigi is like about the product, PR, creative. She's much more thinking about kind of our brand and what we stand for as a brand. And she doesn't really want to be involved in kind of the day-to-day operations. And so I have less experience with product and branding. So I trust her opinion and her kind of her gut feelings. And she trusts me with kind of more like the analysis, numbers, kind of the day-to-day operations. So we just have this really great respect for each other, and we trust each other. And that's just, that's just such a nice situation, because I think you do read about founder CEO relationships that aren't as positive. I think because we know what each other's strengths are. So she respects my strengths, and I know what my strengths aren't, and kind of vice versa. And so, she's not kind of in the day-to-day, but she is always knows what's going on, and, participates in meetings, and, gives us ideas and kind of inspiration, really. And she's very much the face of the brand. When we do any sort of kind of larger marketing, it's usually, Gigi who's representing the brand, which makes sense. It's her idea, her baby, that she came up with. So.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any tips for like leadership tips for entrepreneurs who are hiring their staff, or building out a full company?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand what your strengths are and hire people who have other strengths, because you don't have to be the best at everything. You don't have to know literally everything. You, as a leader, you have to be able to give guidance and direction, and set very clear goals. And then you fill in the team based on what those goals and directions are. And you have to have like a wide range of skills, as well as kind of managerial levels, because you need people who are going to do just kind of the day-to-day kind of grunt work, even like the basics of kind of more administrative. And then you need people who are going to manage them. And then you need, as a leader, a few kind of senior people, so that you don't have to get into all the weeds. If your team is strong, then you look strong. So you should never be afraid to hire anyone who you think may be like competitive to you, or, anything like that. It's really about making sure that your team covers a wide range of skills. And that's one thing. And it's important to find people who understand what startup life is like. And not everybody does. I've definitely kind of have made, one or two hiring kind of mistakes where the person said they know what it's like at a startup, but I don't think I asked enough questions to really assess that. And part of being at a startup is you're kind of always on, and I very much respect work-life balance. I want people to take care of themselves and have a social life. But the day doesn't stop at 5. You can
Right.
go out with your friends or go to the gym, but you may have to be available later, and I try not to intrude on people's kind of off work hours, but sometimes it happens, and not everyone's okay with that. And that's okay. There's plenty of like corporate 9-to-5 jobs. And that's fine, but
And they can go just get one of those, right?
yeah,
100%. I think one of the things that we're visiting at Black Girl Ventures as an internal culture is whether or not we even call it any kind of hours.
Yeah.
It's like, we work until the work is done, and the work is typically never done, but done to the point where we can move on.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, hey, and this is something that I'm having to have conversations with when I hire contractors, because I'm like, hey, I know that tips in the traditional way of doing things, 20 hours a week would be what you do, but that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because some weeks you may not even spend the whole 20 hours. And in some weeks, it may be, we need 30 hours. Like, the hours does not make sense. So I want you to agree to an amount that makes you feel comfortable as a contractor.
Yeah.
It makes sense for you, for the work we're trying to do in the world. And then we can always come back to the table and visit it. But we're always on. Things are never turned off. It's never like, oh, I can't do this time or day. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
We are trying to work on building some of that in.
Yeah.
Where we are a little bit more intentional about saying, okay, Fridays, every other week, we're gonna just like take a day.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So
yeah, I think that's important, because you can get burnt out, and I feel it too. Some, especially lately with quarantining and not, being able to really plan a go away vacation. lately I've been feeling a little burnt out, and I have to kind of figure out, how am I going to get myself out of this state, and maybe I just have to, take a day where I don't check my email. People can text me if there's an emergency, but, maybe take a day and just spend that day, guilt-free watching TV or in the park or something. But, you kind of have to recognize that in yourself. I mean, we are human, and not having kind of the separation between, workspace and home space, has been interesting. I'm like sitting here looking at my couch, knowing that that's where I relax, but I can't sit on there yet because it's still the work day.
So it's 100%.
Yeah.
What are some things that with being an e-commerce brand
Mm-hmm.
that are really important for people to remember? I think the idea of like, oh, put a store up and just market it.
Yeah.
That's all people are thinking. Put a store up, just market it. But like, what else is there to this world that you feel like is really key to keeping a consistent business going?
Yeah. E-commerce is so interesting, and especially at a startup where you don't have a huge engineering team and a QA department to always make sure that things are working. But things break. We're built on Shopify, which is a great platform, and we have developers that we use that are Shopify experts. And when you change the homepage, it requires kind of like a publish, and in that case, if there could be like something that goes wrong with the code. And so you always have to kind of visit the store and look at it from the consumer's eye and make sure everything's working. And there's so many apps out there now for Shopify that help you improve the store. There's apps that help you do like a post-purchase upsell. There's apps that help you split payments. There's a lot out there to help improve the customer experience. And so you always have to kind of take a step back and pretend that this is the first time you're going to the site, and looking at it, through like a customer's eyes and saying, okay, I didn't really understand where to click, or why did I have to click so many times to add this to my cart? Or now that I'm at the cart, why are there so many options for payments? Kind of because we spend so much time on the site, it all seems like, okay, it's working fine. But there's always ways to make it better, to make the site run faster, to make the experience quicker for the customer, to understand what kind of information the customer needs, and how you keep improving that is not only spending time on the site as a customer, but also doing A/B testing. And that is one of probably the best things about running a website versus a store, is you could test. You can test, is this button, should it be white or should it be blue? Should the text be 5 lines long or 3 lines long? And you can continuously test. And even when you do have a result that works, it may stop working because consumer behavior may change. So you have to keep testing. So it's important to kind of map this out and focus on kind of what tests are going to give me kind of the biggest bang for the least amount of effort, and kind of map it out that way. So it's, it's a continuous process. Just the way at a store, you would always dust and clean and rearrange, mannequins. It's the same with a website. You're always trying to clean and make it better.
That's actually a pretty awesome way to put that. I like that a lot.
Thanks. I just thought of it.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty awesome way to put it. So is there anything that you would like to leave us with, or like for everyone to know about you, about CO Beauty, what you got coming up? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, I guess maybe as kind of like a female entrepreneur, I would encourage women in your network to be confident and to not be afraid to take credit. And even if they're not feeling confident, to speak confidently, and just realize that you're doing great work, and you should take credit for it. Because I hear some of the male CEOs in my incubator talking like they're running billion-dollar businesses, and they're not. And I think as women, we tend to be not tooting our own horn as much, so I think it's important that, that we all do that, because we all have, great accomplishments, and we're leading our teams. And, I think we have kind of a mothering instinct. We want our teams to be happy and feeling good about themselves. And, that's, kind of emotionally very consuming. And that's good. I think that's one of the good things about us. But I think we just have to recognize that we do all that. And in terms,
you said an incubator. Do you have an incubator, or you're in an incubator?
I'm in an incubator. So my investor, Michael Loeb, he calls it like a venture collective, where there's a bunch of startups that he and his business partner fund. And so which I love, because then I get to meet other CEOs and hear about other companies, and it's a very collaborative environment. So we all share information with each other about, oh, is this working? Is that working? Have you met this vendor? What about that vendor? So it's nice. You kind of feel less lonely because you have so many other people around you that want to see you be successful.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that there is an assumption that people who are running profitable, revenue-based, consumer products or businesses in general are not in incubators. You know what I mean? So or because you appear to have it all figured out. So it's like, why would you need to be in an incubator seller? Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no, I think it's we all have so much to learn, and it's nice to be. It's important to find an investor or that has access to kind of an incubator space, or find a way to sit with other companies, especially if you're not kind of direct competitors, and share information. There's the vendors out there who do email marketing, vendors who do digital marketing, who build these apps, those apps, and there's no better way to kind of know if they're legit and do good work unless they have like a recommendation from someone, and so like if you sit with other companies, it's easy to get that kind of information, and it's nice to share ideas. What works for us on Facebook may work for someone else on Facebook, even if we're slightly different industries. And it's nice to, I just enjoy having people around and kind of hearing the buzz of people and talking, so I think that's also been a nice part of being part of an incubator. And different people bring different skills. When you're kind of looking for investors, you have to think about, what are my goals? Am I really focused on product development? Am I really focused on retail expansion? Or am I really focused just on digital? And find investors who have experience in those functionalities, so that you could achieve your goals.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think so. Yeah. One of the things that we're passionate about at BlackRock Ventures is community building as a service. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly saying, like, it's all about the network. It's all about social capital. Social capital leads to more capital, financial capital. It is absolutely the way. Like networking, peer mentoring, trading, sharing information is 100% the way that you survive as especially in the startup world.
Yeah.
But I would dare say as a professional and in business in general. So
yeah, I think so. I think people are good and want to help each other. Maybe like a direct competitor you probably don't want to share your information with, but in general, people want to help each other succeed. And I think, I think there's a lot of good out there and a lot of support, especially I think in the entrepreneur space. I think other entrepreneurs really respect their fellow entrepreneurs and want to see them succeed. And so it's always worth asking for help and then sharing kind of, your experiences and advice. So.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support of BlackRock Ventures and just like having a kick-ass beauty brand rocking and rolling in New York.
Thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Have a good rest of the week. Okay. Take care. Great meeting you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.